You know how in school you had to take a psychological evaluation test every few months so the school could make sure you were doing alright? Meet the two students who would fail this simple test and get sent to the counselor's office for some serious mental health talks. 危险人格, or Dangerous Personality, is a novel with 163 chapters written by author Mu Guohuang, my second favorite author in the Danmei space. First place is obviously reserved for Mama Chili. Anyways, some of Mu Guohuang's popular works are Fake Slackers and Beyond the Outline, one of which holds a special place in my heart. Her school life stories are legendary, and she excels in writing chemistry between characters, whether it's romantic or platonic. When she dropped this novel as her first crime/mystery novel, I didn't expect it to be such a banger. Qing is a cold, misophobic man who secretly has the ability to read other people's thoughts via skin contact. Due to his only friend Ji being a police officer, Qing sometimes lends a hand, literally, in providing clues for cases. One fateful day, while attending his therapy session, Qing meets his new personal doctor, a man named Xie Lin, who has a knack of getting on his nerve. After some non-consensual hand-touching, it is quickly revealed that Xie Lin isn't his doctor at all, but rather a patient also here to receive treatment. Thus, that was how our two leads' paths crossed briefly. They probably wouldn't have any further interactions again if it wasn't for the recent viral case in the city. You see, due to a series of unfortunate coincidences, Qing and Xie Lin end up suspecting each other of being the murderer in the latest case. After almost killing each other in their attempt to arrest one another, they find themselves standing at the police station in disarray, each trying to turn the other party in. Needless to say, the misunderstanding was cleared a bit too late and both of them ended up looking like fools. It's a running gag that both of them always unexpectedly ends up at the scene of the crime and look more like suspects than the actual suspects. Eventually, they start working together and their relationship develops along the way as they solve multiple homicide cases that all eventually ties back to a major case 10 years ago. A case that our two leads may have a part in. Are you hooked? 'Cause I am. Time to give some background on our two leads.
你自己有病，还给别人看病。
Qing at the start of the novel has a heavy degree of misophobia and is asocial. Through a childhood event he experienced 10 years ago, he gains the ability to hear people's thoughts by making skin contact with them. Some may think this is a great ability to have, as you could find out what a person is truly thinking deep down. But this ability was a complete inconvenience and useless to a person like Qing, who does not give a what other people's opinions are and just wants to mind his own business. Thus, he makes it a habit to wear gloves wherever he goes. However, this wasn't the sole reason that made him start wearing gloves. You see, with his newfound powers, he also gained a new sickness, misophobia. The longer he had his powers, the worse it got. He couldn't tolerate anyone touching him, and if they did, he would either beat them up or wash his hands vigorously. Qing was already a kid that didn't like socializing, but his power and misophobia made it worse, and he closed himself off socializing completely unless necessary. We later find out throughout the novel that what Qing is disgusted by isn't the filth of the human touch, but the filth of the human heart. That what he wants to clean and erase isn't the dirt off his hands, but the vile thoughts that he is forced to listen to. Everyone has a secret hidden in their heart, deep guilt that no one knows about, and desires that cannot be spoken of. Qing is constantly exposed to these dark thoughts. His doctor told him that he wasn't able to feel normal emotions and empathize with others. As a result, even after graduating top of his class, he takes up acting as a career as a way to understand emotions. However, his attempts were unfruitful, and he still couldn't heal himself. After changing therapists for the nth time, he meets Xie Lin, the only person he couldn't read.
不想说就不说。
Xie Lin is the newly reinstated crime consultant of the Criminal Investigation Team of the Huanan Municipal Public Security Bureau. Born with an innate talent for crime, Xie Lin has assisted his brother in solving some of the city's most challenging cases while still in middle school. However, after the death of his brother 10 years ago, Xie Lin was dismissed from the police force. The reason? His psych evaluation. Despite his charming and sociable demeanor, Xie Lin's test results painted a very different picture. The assessment deemed him as a high-risk individual, labeling him as dangerous with the potential to commit heinous crimes. His intense fascination with criminal behavior, coupled with an unnerving ability to understand the minds of criminals at such a young age, deeply unsettled the police. For individuals like Xie Lin, Long-term exposure to crime scenes could affect his mental health and lead him down the path of crime. Accompanied by the death of his brother, everyone was uncertain whether they would be able to keep him under control and prevent him from straying. Thus, they decided to fire him. As the saying goes, two negatives make a positive. Despite both characters being mentally abnormal from others, their relationship together actually pushed them to grow and heal as individuals. At the start, Qing only allowed Xie Lin to stick around him because he was the only one who could block out and silence his ever-noisy world. Xie Lin provided him a space away from the noise, where he could sleep in peace. The relief Qing felt when Xie Lin held his hand was addicting because in that moment, it truly felt so nice to just be able to take a break from the constant voices in his head and only be able to listen to the sound around him like a normal person. With a new person around in his life, Qing's lifestyle started to change. Xie Lin often pushes Qing into social settings, such as having dinner with coworkers or shopping in crowded areas where he is forced to interact with others. When Qing starts unknowingly developing feelings for Xie Lin, he starts to go out on his own initiative to join wherever Xie Lin was going. In the end, Xie Lin's subtle yet effective treatment plan worked, as Qing had made more contact with others in the time that he's known Xie Lin than he had in the past 23 years of his life. The act of having friends over to his overly disinfected house was an act that would have been impossible for the past him. But because of Xie Lin, he is slowly able to open up and integrate himself into the world around him. Xie Lin could be said to be a victim of these psychological evaluation tests. Imagine being overqualified for the position, yet still failing to get the job due to being deemed mentally unstable. Despite his carefree appearance, the results of the test had a big impact on Xie Lin's confidence. Xie Lin often doubts himself on whether he should be a consultant, because everyone around him views him as dangerous. That his trait of understanding the murderers and his ability to substitute himself in the murderer's place is threatening. Moreover, Xie Lin was exposed to these opinions from a very young age, so when everyone around you thinks you're going to be a criminal, you start viewing yourself the same way. Xie Lin is scared of himself, scared that he would become the monster of the cases he solved, scared that one day he would give in to his desires and commit a crime. If he wanted to, his in-depth comprehension of criminal psychology and behavior would allow him to commit a seamless crime that no one could trace back to him. When Xie Lin is consumed by these dark thoughts, Qing's rational and straightforward response pulls him back. He dispels Xie Lin's doubts by just stating the undeniable truth, that despite having the ability to pursue the life of crime, he didn't. The very trait that Xie Lin feared would hurt others, instead, allowed him to save countless lives, and it will continue to do so. Qing's unintentional remark was the reassurance Xie Lin needed to hear in a long time. With Qing around, Xie Lin learns to open up and trust in himself more.
你不是这里的医生啊？怎么发现的？你是谁？你猜？
Their domestic relationship together is sweet and provides a break from all the depressing cases. Both realize around the same time that they like the other party and confess without much drag. Such a strong emotion as love was never in Qing's dictionary, so it was a huge step for him to agree to a relationship with Xie Lin. When the emotionally detached Qing didn't understand what emotion he was feeling, he would try to get the answers from TV dramas, and that would often lead him to extreme answers. For example, when Qing was feeling jealous for the first time, he assumed his annoyance as him falling out of love for Xie Lin and considered breaking up with him. It's hilarious because it hadn't even been a week into their relationship, and Qing had already proposed to break up twice. Both work well together as a duo and are pretty on par with each other when solving cases. Qing, through mind reading, is able to provide some crucial clues, while high EQ Xie Lin over there assesses the suspect's thoughts, process, and motive. The pairing of one who has no expression looking at a corpse while the other smiles is entertaining and further fuels their bad reputation. The extra of the novel also show their unique marriage proposal, so that's also a win. To end this section, I obviously have to mention the CP name. This couple's CP name is Double Gods of the General Administration. The CP name carries two meanings. On the surface, it implies both Xie Lin and Qing being talented gods in solving cases. However, the word God in Chinese is also a character in the word for lunatic. So the CP name is also subtly implying that they're both psychotic lunatics. What a backhanded CP name. So, what exactly happened 10 years ago, and what is the hidden relation between Qing and Xie Lin? This is the question that looms over the reader's head throughout the novel. We get bits and pieces of it throughout the story, but never the full picture. Warning that I am getting into heavy spoiler territory of the later half of the novel, so if you are interested in reading, skip to this timestamp. Now, for the viewers who do not fear spoilers, let us continue. 10 years ago, Qing and Xie Lin were both kidnapped among many other top students to play a simple game. The game was as such. 2 kids were locked in each room. After 1 week, only one could remain. If there are still 2 kids in the room by the end of the week, both will be killed. The game would continue until only 1 kid remained in the entire game. The kidnapper was essentially forcing these students with a bright future ahead of them to soil their hands and kill each other to survive. They would never be the same again after this experience. The ultimate goal of this game was to find the most ruthless kid to be the kidnapper's successor and to continue his legacy. Qing and Xie Lin rooms were right next to each other, and Xie Lin communicated with Qing with knocks on the wall using Morse code. Although they didn't know what the other party looked like, their silent conversation kept each other sane in the hell-like environment. On the last day of the first week, Qing's roommate attacks him in the middle of the night, and in the scuffle, Qing accidentally kills him. The game continued for a month, and by the time the police had located them, there were only 2 survivors left. This reveal was insane, as it confirmed that both Qing and Xie Lin had blood on their hands. Although it was counted as self-defense, they still ended their peers' lives, and the mental impact was there. To have to live through such a deadly experience at such a young age is horrible. This kidnapper was basically staging the kids' version of Squid Game, except instead of bagging billions of dollars, you get a bag of lifelong mental issues. Side note, but this novel came out the same year as the movie Squid Game was released. However, the author already started this story in January, before the film was released. So does this count as the original Squid Game? Now that I've set the stage, we can talk about the most tragic character in the novel, Z. Remember how I said there were only 2 survivors left from the death game? Well, there were actually 3, and the last one is Z. Z was a child who grew up in an abusive orphanage and was later taken in by the soon-to-be kidnapper. The man was planning to kill him, but Z, who had the courage to threaten his captor, sparked his interest, and Z was later confined to his house. Z was originally hostile to the man, until one day, the man gave him a free toy from one of those cheap McDonald's Happy Meals. The abused child who just received his first gift ever starts to warm up to his captor. Can you see where this is going? A few months later, the sensational kidnapping case began, and Z also participated in it. His cellmate was a sunny boy who often talked about his happy life with his mother. Z originally thought this boy was annoying, but he couldn't help but be drawn to the stories told by the boy. After all, the warmth of a family described by the boy was everything Z had yearned for. When Z was free and had nowhere to go, he couldn't help but show up at the house of the now-deceased boy. This dude was mentally unhinged, but also I can't help but sympathize with him. Even though he was still psychotic and homicidal after he left his captor, time with his new family changed him. He was willing to start over and live a peaceful life with his new mother. However, the life he has now was never his to begin with, so it was never going to last. His mother's final outburst at him shattered the fake reality he was living in, and he was forced to realize that nothing was ever going to change. He was always going to be the demon kid who showed up at her doorstep one day and stole the identity of her son. Z is the man behind all the cases in the novel thus far. While he never directly participated in the killings, he induced unstable individuals to give in to their impulsive desires and kill. Even though the kidnapper from 10 years ago had long since died, Z continues to carry his legacy of spreading evil to the world. His ultimate goal, though, is to find a kindred spirit, a friend like him, and his target is Xie Lin. When Z finally makes contact with Xie Lin, he constantly tries to push Xie Lin into killing those around him, as if he wants to drag Xie Lin into the dark abyss with him. Z was a man with a long list of crimes, yet even after 10 years, he couldn't shake his deep longing for love and connection. Despite knowing his mother was deceiving him, he continued to indulge in the momentary illusion of someone actually caring for him, a mistake that ultimately led to his capture. In his final moments, his thoughts weren't on the rush of murder, but on the brief, comforting warmth he experienced with his mother. This really showcased that the false affection from his pretend family was the only real solace he'd ever known in his life. Xie is resentful of how Qing and Xie Lin could move on with their lives even after going through such a life-changing incident. They were all kidnapped children, so why was he the only one who couldn't move on? He always somehow messed up and ended up choosing the wrong choices at every point in life. The character progression and arcs in the story are engaging and well written. My favorite arcs are the school arc and the on-the-run arc. If you know, you know. Xie Lin and Qing are both characters that have seen all kinds of evil and walked through the endless abyss. Crime is very attractive, and even for them, it is an easy thing to achieve, but they have never thought of taking that path. Together, they help heal each other's scars and continue forward in life. This novel really reminds me of my ultimate favorite Danmei novel, which also talks about the evils of humanity. But that's a video for another day. For readers who love crime and mystery sprinkled with some romance, this novel's for you.